Hello, Liverpool fans. Welcome to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. Coach Ralph and I are excited to bring you this podcast. From games to players to club news, we cover everything LFC. You can find us on every platform and YouTube. Please take a second to follow or subscribe to the podcast. That way, you know when the latest podcast is up. Thank you for listening, and now on to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. I'm joined by my co-host, Coach Ralph. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, Salim. I think I'm getting ready to go into hibernation because it's another international break. So I hate international breaks, but anyway, we have to live with them.
Yeah, hold our breath, cross our fingers too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's that side of it too.
Well, Coach, another victory for the Reds at Selhurst Park versus Crystal Palace, but it was far from easy.
Yeah, a strange kind of game because Crystal Palace actually were poor. They kept giving the ball away and really weren't very adventurous because the crowd can get behind them at Selhurst Park. But until the dying embers of the game, they didn't really engage with the crowd and get them behind them. So it was a weird game in the sense that Liverpool actually did a lot of things well in the first half, scored early as you'd want them to do because I think the feeling was that Palace probably would play conservatively. But yet they never really capitalized on the domination and the chances that they created.
Yeah, they had more shots on goal than Liverpool. Liverpool had 4, Crystal Palace had 5.
Are you talking about on target?
On target, yeah, but they only had 9 shots in all, and Liverpool had 16. Mm-hmm. The longer the game went 1-0, the more nervous I got. And they did have a couple opportunities, as they had 2, that I thought for sure one of them he would have buried, but didn't come to fruition. Interesting lineup from Crystal Palace. Very interesting that they started Nketiah over Mateta. Mateta is a big boy that can run and can give a lot of defenders fits, but I thought it was kind of interesting that Nketiah got the start. From Liverpool's perspective, Coach, the 1-0 victory, Jota scoring, but some changes in the lineup as well, as Jones came in to play in Szoboszlai's spot, Gakpo came in for Diaz's spot, and Tsimikas in for Robertson's spot. Is this just rotation? Is this guys that have kind of earned a spot to try to compete for those positions? What do you think it is?
I think he's starting to think about rotating because, as I'm sure we'll discuss later in the podcast, the run of games that Liverpool have coming up are, well, it's difficult, and that's I think that's an understatement, actually, to say that they're difficult. So one thing he hasn't really done with the League Cup game against West Ham being the exception is he's not really rotated that much. And I suspect it was a factor with the one loss against Nottingham Forest. I think he might have rotated there. Mm-hmm. Be interesting to talk to the manager and just see how he reflects on it. So he hasn't really rotated much, but he's going to have to because there's games every 3 or 4 days and a lot of tough games as well. So I think that this is the start of it. And yeah. I mean, as I said before, I thought Liverpool played well for the lion's share of the game. But I'm starting to get more of a sense now of some of the differences between this Liverpool and the Liverpool of the predecessor, Jurgen Klopp. for me, when they get in and around the penalty box, at times it seems like they're almost trying to set up the perfect shot or the perfect goal. Too many passes instead of just going for it. Because they were getting into good positions, and they weren't really looking to pull the trigger as much as they might have.
Yeah, Salah had a nice chance that in the second half that I thought for sure this is, he can not necessarily go missing, but he can kind of be quiet for, big parts, and then he pops up for a goal. And but that wasn't the case today. Coach, the 9th-minute goal by Jota, a great hockey assist, as I call it, of Tsimikas kind of putting a ball backdoor as Gakpo ran, instead of coming to him, ran right past Munoz. Nice ball by Tsimikas to put him through, and then Gakpo puts a nice ball across. But Jota has kind of a lot of work to do because he has to get in front of the defender, and he does a great job getting in front of the defender to score the goal. This is what we expect from Jota. These are the kinds of goals he can get. What was your reaction of the goal?
Well, it was a great goal, and it was very much along the lines of what we've seen in recent years at Anfield. It was a great ball that Tsimikas threaded through. Sharp pullback by Gakpo, and Jota getting in front of his man to knock it home. What was interesting for me was that was a real striker's goal.
Mm-hmm.
But he subsequently missed 2 chances, which I thought were a lot, in a sense, easier, more open, and he had more time. And I don't know whether that was a factor in it. There was a move later in the half, and it's from the right side of the field, and the ball was pulled back to him, and he really wasn't under much pressure. And he didn't even really get a shot off.
He kind of fanned on it a little bit. He just flipped his heel or something. Yeah,
he did. And then the free kick in the second half, were again, nobody was really with him. He got him behind the defence. It was a great curling ball, and all he had to do was redirect it, and he mistimed it. So it was kind of ironic that the most difficult of the 3 chances was the one he converted.
Yeah, that was off a free kick, and Trent's ball in was, it was perfect. And Jota is pretty good with his head, so it was surprising that he kind of glanced it instead of just kind of hammering it back. But with Crystal Palace having some chances and some shots on goal, was the result ever in doubt in your mind? Did you get nervous like I was? Like, well, the longer it goes 1-0, they will get a chance or two, and thank goodness nothing happened. But I was very uneasy.
Right. I mean, it's a 1-goal game, and so even though Crystal Palace hadn't played well, I mean, anything can happen. Anything can happen, and certainly the opportunity when Eze was put through, and I can't quite recall how it happened, but there was a bit of sloppy play somewhere in Liverpool, and all of a sudden Eze is through on goal, and Alisson just comes off his line, makes himself big, and really it's up to Eze then to do something. The goalkeeper put pressure on him, and he didn't really... Well, he fluffed his lines, Eze, didn't he, to be honest?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was when Jaros was in. I know the something happened in the midfield. The ball kind of broke to Mateta, and he kind of drove forward and gave it to Eze. And Eze looked like he was leaning back, and he wasn't sure exactly what...
Well, there were 2 opportunities. I think one was with Alisson.
Yeah.
The one with Alisson.
Yes.
And then he
hammered that. Yeah.
Yeah, he had an opportunity to shoot from a good position, and basically Jaros had come off his line, as he should, and basically he struck it pretty much out the goalie.
Yeah. As I kind of look overall in the match, I feel, maybe we're a little fortunate. Did you get that sense as well?
What, to win against Crystal Palace?
Yeah.
Yes and no, because over the majority of the game, I think Liverpool was in control. However, if Crystal Palace had equalised, I think I'd be saying to you, well, Liverpool only had themselves to blame.
Yeah.
Because they had domination of the game, and they created several chances which they didn't even really get on target. So I mean, I didn't know that Palace had more shots on target, but I think that kind of hints that Liverpool's strikes on goal could have been better.
Yeah, and in the starting lineup for them, when I saw Sarr in, I said, "Uh-oh, I remember this guy from Watford."
Yeah.
But he had, I think he had one shot on goal, but relatively ineffective, which was nice to see. So Alisson hurts his hamstring, coach, and all of a sudden I see Jaros come in, and I said, "Where the heck is Kelleher?" So I guess Kelleher was sick.
Yeah.
But Jaros comes in and sees the game out. I think he was very conservative, which I liked. Any ball that came back to him, he was just punting it upfield. I liked that he didn't take any unnecessary chances. So I really thought he came in and kind of closed the door on him, which was nice. It didn't give him any silly opportunities, so that was good. The details within the game: 68% possession for Liverpool, 4 shots on goal out of 16. We talked about Crystal Palace. Coach, the substitutions, Szoboszlai did come in after, and Diaz came in after, and Robertson came in after, and the most interesting one was Endo came in. And I thought he did okay, but it becomes really clear when he's in there why Slot doesn't love him. And I think we all knew this. He's not a ball-playing defender, central midfielder. He's a good player. He's got a role in a team, but he's more of a destroyer. And I know we've talked about that in the past, but I thought he came in and he might be the guy that closes the door on games. Is that maybe what his role will be, you think?
Well, it was certainly the role on Saturday, because I think that's just an indication that while Slot maybe doesn't see the qualities that he wants from a midfielder, he recognises that in certain situations the value of Endo. So I do think it's something that we're going to see again. I do think it's something that we will see, and who knows, there might be certain games where he even gets to start because the manager sees a role because of what the particular opponent brings to the table, with all the tough games they have coming up.
The player performances, Tsimikas, I thought, played well. I thought Jota could have had a huge game, but he did get one of his chances over the line, and that is huge because that was the only goal in the game. I thought it was interesting also that it was more of a single pivot today, on Saturday. It looked like McAllister and Jones were further up the pitch. Did you notice that?
Not particularly. Liverpool just dominated for so much of the game. And of course, one of the disadvantages of watching on television is that you don't get the field overview.
Mm-hmm.
So there was nothing that was overtly obvious to me, because pretty much Palace Palace were kind of a combination of sitting in and hem back, and Liverpool just had a lot of possession. So there wasn't enough to and fro in the game, really, for my eyes on TV to pick that out.
Okay. Does Tsimikas get man of the match? Jota? Anybody else?
I think you'd almost give it to Tsimikas because I know some people are critical of him, and I don't think anybody, myself included, thinks he's at the same level as Andy Robertson. But he did have a good game, and it was certainly an excellent through ball that he gave to Gakpo to set up the goal. But overall, if you look at the week that Liverpool just had, where they went to Wolves and won, they beat Bologna in the Champions League, and then they had that result against Crystal Palace. They were pretty much performances that were, I'm kind of scrambling for the right word, they were colourless in a way, because maybe they had the upper hand, although I thought Wolves at some parts of the game really took it to Liverpool. None of the performances were kind of vintage.
Yeah,
I think that is a given, and I've heard several fans and pundits point that out. I suppose you can look at it and say, well, they didn't give it. Well, they gave up a goal against Wolves, which really was an absolutely shocking defensive error.
Yeah.
But other than that, they've been pretty good at the back. For me, the thing about the three games is, while they dominated, I think they could have done better up front. And I don't know whether it's to do with some of the style differences that we're starting to see. Because under Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool were very cut and thrust.
Right.
And so the kind of opportunities the players would get would be, well, kind of like Jota's goal today, where he doesn't really have time to think. You know, it's a fast break by the team, quick balls, ball across, Jota gets in front of his man, scores. And so that was very much part of the Jurgen Klopp legacy, whereas some of the other times when they've set up opportunities, it seems to me like they had the ball around the edge of the 18. Oh, can he shoot? No, dishes it. Can he shoot? No, passes it. And so they have more time, but there's just not that same kind of razor-sharp type finishing that we would see so much, especially in the Mane, Firmino, Salah era.
Yes. And, you know, that era was incredible, too. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those were excellent players. So let's go... Well, before we go to the Bologna game, I did things a little bit in reverse today just because this game was more fresh of mind. And, Coach, Nketiah scores in the first few minutes of the game. It was disallowed. He was offsides. But this also happened at Bournemouth with Semenyo. Is this something to worry about, or is this just kind of coincidence that these things are starting to pop up?
Could be. The goal that they gave up against well, it was disallowed, and
yeah. I
thought Liverpool were fortunate, by the way. I mean, basically, one scenario for the game was that Palace would get in there, be aggressive. They would probably, when they see the teams, maybe identify as Tsimikas as a weak link in defence. So they won the ball quickly. I can't remember who the challenge was on, but they won the ball. The ball was played then behind Tsimikas, and then a quick ball across the box, and Nketiah convert. Now, he was clearly offside, whereas I think the Semenyo one, they were very lucky about that because that was one of those toenail-type goals.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was pretty clear he was offside, but you can say that if teams adopt a certain kind of attitude against Liverpool, maybe they could be exposed. And it's something I have a gut feeling about, and I think it's what they're going to be tested on over the coming weeks. Is there's just something missing in the team, and I don't mean to be overcritical or anything like that, because they've had a start of the season, they've played 10 games, they've won 9, which is a great start, but yet something isn't quite evident or quite there. And if you look at the run of fixtures, and I think Arne Slot was correct to point it out, they haven't had the toughest run, but on paper the 2 roughest fixtures were going to Old Trafford and going to San Siro, and Liverpool won both those games. But you have to come away and say, well, Manchester United and AC Milan really are going through periods where, I'm not even sure that transition's the right word, where they're struggling.
Yeah.
So they are good wins to go to those places because they're difficult, but there's just something missing for me, and so there's elements of the team that I want to see really tested. Gravenberch actually had a good game against Palace. I mean, he's very adept at turning with the ball quickly. He's very good at that. But Palace didn't really put anybody on him. So he had a lot of time and space. So I have to believe that because he hasn't had a strong start to the season, opposing teams are going to put more pressure on him. And so is he a legitimate defensive midfielder, holding midfielder, number 6, call it what you will.
Right.
I think the upcoming games will certainly test that. I also feel there's a little bit of fragility in defense, even though the record is so good. Because overall, I think that if you look at the 10 games, I think they've only conceded 4 goals if you take them all in. I think I'm right in making that.
Let's see here.
So they've only given up 2 in the league. Then they gave up a goal against West Ham, a goal against AC Milan.
Yes. Yep. That's correct. Yep.
So I don't. Yeah. 4 goals. So I mean, like that is a good record. That is a good record. But I just have a feeling that the defense could be pressured a little bit more. And how will they cope? Seems like Alisson's going to be out for a while as well. So that's another little bit of a question mark. I think Kelleher has shown himself to be a good deputy, but Alisson is one of the best. So that at some point is going to be a loss of some degree. So there's all these little question marks, and then up front, as I kind of indicated, and I think Palace was the classic game. They really had Crystal Palace right where they wanted them on Saturday for at least an hour.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there's not that feeling of ruthlessness that we saw in previous seasons, say. And for me, Salah and Alexander-Arnold, whilst they do show their brilliance and have shown their brilliance at times in all these games, overall, I don't feel that they're performing consistently at the same level as we've seen in previous years.
Yeah. The Salah's been a little bit, I don't want to use the word quiet, but more or off. But yeah, you're right. So the level's not the standard that we expect from, or that we've seen from Salah. And I completely agree with you with Robertson too, I think. Trent. That ball was amazing today, that cross that Jota missed the header. But, I don't know, maybe if that goes in, we're saying different things. But I think overall, you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. Coach, the Bologna game, a 2-0 victory. Bologna had some threats. They had a couple players that were giving Liverpool some problems. but at the end of the day, a solid Arne Slot scoreline 2-0. McAllister, the McAllister goal, that movement between McAllister, Gravenberch, and Darwin was really nice. They swung it out to Mo Salah. Darwin swung it out to Mo Salah. I don't know what that Bologna goalkeeper was doing, because I mean, when McAllister put the ball over the line, it looked like he was a foot away from the goal. So it was a really nice ball from Salah swinging it in with his left foot, but I think the Bologna goalie kind of could have done better. But anyway, 1-0 there, and then Mo Salah with a classic cut inside, strike it, top corner with some pace and a little bit of curl on it. Classic Salah goal.
It was, and I don't want to sound like I'm trying to devalue it too much, but the defending by Bologna was awful.
Yeah,
because everybody knows what he wants to do. And I think on that occasion, I mean, sometimes, it was always the same with Coutinho. You would always know what you wanted to do. And sometimes he was just so quick doing it. And Salah's the same, that you can't stop them. But on this particular occasion, he was allowed to bring the ball across the box without any real challenge on him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a great shot. It was a good finish, but whether or not we see that the same kind of room given to him in coming weeks, we will have to wait and see on that point.
Yeah, I think, Bologna had a tough off-season. They lose Calafiori, they lose Xerxes, their coach Motta goes to Juventus. So, yeah, I don't see Bologna getting out of this league phase into the knockouts. You're right. The defense was was poor, and that's, I think, being kind. They only had 2 shots on goal. They did have 12 shot attempts to Liverpool's 9, but we had 4 shots on goal. 51.5% possession, so the possession was about the same. But Italian teams, have a certain grit to them, especially defensively, and that was just not there for this team. Yeah.
Well, I have to say that you're more up on me on some of the stats here, and having heard that Bologna had more shots, and then Palace as well, or certainly Palace on target. This is different from what we've seen before, because I mean, how many times did teams outshoot Liverpool before?
Right.
So I think that's an interesting stat. Now part of it can be because of the way that the opponent plays, but we haven't had too many Nottingham Forest type games, have we? So Liverpool's had a lot of possession in some of these games. Yeah, I just feel that that they're passing the ball too much at times.
Yeah. Well, we're coming from the Klopp era where these guys were encouraged to shoot, and the breakaways too were lightning fast. I think these stats. The reason I'm bringing these stats up is I think we're starting to see the shift of more possession, more not as a helter-skelter type of game, more of a calm, controlled game. And as exciting as the helter-skelter was, we always knew on the back end we could be susceptible. And although we've been susceptible a couple times, and maybe fortunate for the other teams not to score a couple times, it's relatively decent in the back. However, you did mention that you think, you want to see some teams at a higher level and see how we do there. And I completely agree. And that brings us to our look ahead. Chelsea on the 20th at Anfield, and then Leipzig at Leipzig on the 23rd, and then Arsenal at Arsenal on the 27th. Oof.
Well, look, look at the next 10 games for Liverpool. Chelsea, Leipzig, Arsenal, Brighton twice in quick succession. Bayer Leverkusen, Villa, Southampton,
Madrid.
Real Madrid, Manchester City. So that is a tough run. That is a tough run because Leipzig away, Brighton. Well, you saw Brighton what they can do to a team like Tottenham.
Coach, I turned that game off. I thought I started watching football. I thought this game's done and dusted. Like they're in full control, and they weren't.
The only game in theory that's easier, in theory, would be Southampton away, and that's in the middle of a 4-game run where they play Villa, Madrid, and City. So 3 Champions League teams. Although I think they're all at Liverpool. Actually, I think they're all at Liverpool. I'm not sure if that's right.
Leverkusen, Villa, and Madrid. Yeah, those are at Anfield.
What about Manchester City? Is Manchester City at Anfield?
Yep.
So actually, yeah. There's a run of five games against Champions League level teams, and Southampton's in the middle, which is an away fixture. So you wonder whether they play at Southampton and they've got their minds on Real Madrid. You know, just these little wrinkles. Now, the 10-game spell is certainly going to test the Reds in a way we haven't seen so far. And then once that finishes, they've got a 4-game run-up to the Christmas period, which is Newcastle and Everton away, and Girona away. And then the one home game there is Fulham at home. And Fulham showed that they can be a difficult opponent. And once that 4-game run is over, then it's the Christmas madness where they play all those games in a short period of time. And I know the first one's Tottenham.
Yeah, at Tottenham. Mm-hmm.
So this is really, really going to test on a slot, because I think he favours, or certainly on what we've seen so far, he's tended to favour the same 11. And I think that kind of backfired on him in the one game that they lost. So is he going to adapt? Well, I think he has to.
Yeah.
And how is he going to adapt? So they come back from the international break. The first game is Chelsea. Now, I suppose the one difference between playing Chelsea and Nottingham Forest is Chelsea will have had a lot of players like Liverpool away, playing for their countries and what have you. So they will be in the same boat. And I believe that they're going to be missing a couple of players because of accumulated yellow cards, a couple of their defenders.
Okay.
So I'll be very interested to see what kind of team that he turns out. And I felt logically from the last international break when they came back, I thought he would play Núñez because Núñez is on international suspension. So he's at a week or so, or 10 days, whatever it is, doing zero. He's going to be fresh, and he's high energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that would be a very logical selection, and I think it's a logical selection to play against Chelsea.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah. So I'll be very interested to see how he fields the team. Clearly, Alisson's not going to be playing, but Kelleher will be away with Ireland. I don't know where they will be playing through the break. So, yeah, interesting times, because then they have the away trip to Germany, followed by the Arsenal game away. So that is, that could well be like a bucket of cold water poured on your head, that one.
Yeah.
It's a different, very, very different and more challenging run of games than they've had so far.
Yeah, when we looked at the schedule, we knew that this was when we will really see the tactical know-how of Coach Slot and how the team, has adapted to it, especially against these difficult teams. So you're right, Coach. We really haven't had. I mean, all games have to be played on the field, but on paper, the schedule looked good. However, with the new coach, new tactics, a lot of kind of change in the team when it comes to that, not the actual team, but the coach and the club. It's really nice to be where we're at, but now we're really going to see it. And I'm excited to see it because I think these are the games that Liverpool and Anfield, really kind of rise up together. So the Chelsea game, obviously Cole Palmer is a fantastic player. And Leipzig has some former Liverpool players, so there'll be some familiarity for them. And then Arsenal, I mean, we saw Saka this weekend. He was absolutely on fire. He was playing very well. So, Coach, realistically, the next 3 games, what is an acceptable results for the 3? If we say, on the 27th at, 2:30, 3 o'clock Eastern time, if we've won 1 and draw 2 games, have we lost 1? What do you think is a realistic expectation coming out of there?
Well, I think that might be close to it. Whether the average fan thinks it's acceptable is maybe a different conversation, because I think they expect Liverpool, and I think most fans expect their teams to win every game and play beautiful football. But
that's not reality, though. Yeah.
No, it's not reality at all. So I think that if they can get through the 3 games undefeated, that, from my way of thinking, is unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess in contrast, I know Manchester City has an easy run of games, so you always suck back into this kind of vacuum of and it just never used to be like this, where you're thinking, oh gosh, if you drop points early in the season, like your history.
Yeah.
And so I guess that comes into the equation as well. So I mean, just say if they drew both the Chelsea and the Arsenal games, and City are pretty much guaranteed to win every game, apart from maybe some of the more serious competitors. So City get 6 points, Liverpool get 2 points, and Liverpool are 1 point ahead of them right now. So all of a sudden, they're 3 points in arrears to Manchester City, and you're thinking the way that the title has been ever since Pep Guardiola took over that club, that all of a sudden there's a gap starting to open, and they don't drop points. So it's the new way of soccer, I'm afraid, or football in England.
Yeah, I think City has looked a little bit more susceptible than in the past.
True.
The Rodri injury is. I remember, last year and the year before, whenever Rodri would get hurt and isn't in the match day, I would literally bet against Manchester City, literally put money down on the other team to win. And it's a critical part of theirs. I'm wondering if they're going to go in January and kind of shore that spot up, but I think that's going to rear its ugly head a couple times before January.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I see it quite the same. They may well try to buy somebody in January, and apparently Zubimendi's one that they might be looking at. But they've just got such a deep squad, because what happens on Saturday, like they struggled to get past Fulham, and Fulham were very unfortunate not to get anything out of the game. But basically, Rodri's deputy, Kovacic, scores twice. So, I mean, okay, he's not as good a player as Rodri, but he's a pretty good deputy.
Yeah.
And he's a pretty experienced deputy. So De Bruyne is not playing either. I mean, who else have they got? Oh, they've got Phil Foden. Yeah, De Bruyne and Rodri would be in the team if they're playing, but I think their deputies would be playing for just about every other club in the Premier League. So it's all relative, really.
Yeah, I don't rate Kovacic that much myself. I think, he had a really good game. I mean, fair play. He's had some good games in the past. He's scored a beautiful goal against Liverpool when he was at Chelsea. So he's a known commodity, but I think that he, like, over a long stretch of games, he is they'll be susceptible because of him. But
they may rotate. They may rotate Kovacic, and Kovacic is a Pep Guardiola signing. Excuse me. I think they've had a couple of signings where I'm not totally convinced that Guardiola was 100% behind it. Phillips being the classic example. But he was bought for whatever reason. So whether that was the recruitment team and they kind of put their case forward and why it was worth signing him. But Guardiola obviously, clearly didn't rate him. Kovacic he rates.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens for sure. Coach, against Chelsea, you mentioned two players that you'd like to see start. Darwin is one of them. Kelleher out of necessity because of Alisson's injury. Is the defense going to be the same? Trent, Konate, Virgil, and Robertson?
I think he's most likely to keep the defense the same.
Gravenberch?
It's a question. Yeah, it's a question of how he rotates. It's how he rotates the rest and where are they playing? When are they coming back? So, for example, and I don't know all the games, to be honest with you, so I could only guess. So Diaz will be in South America. Gakpo will be somewhere in Europe. So Gakpo's going to be back for longer. Might be more logical to start Gakpo and have Luis Diaz in reserve. And then Salah did play in the last international break, so I'm assuming that he does again with Egypt and what have you. But Salah, unfortunately, I did hear one of the commentators say that he didn't look too happy about being brought off. I don't know whether it was so obviously overt as it's been on previous occasions, but I feel he needs to be rotated more myself, Salah. And, his ego has to handle that. His ego has to handle it. So if he's not involved in the game too much, then, he's one of 6 very good forwards. So, well, that's certainly on paper. Obviously the manager has to, if that's what the manager feels, then he has to exert himself.
In the middle, Gravenberch, McAllister, or is it Jones in there? And Szoboszlai, because in Europe, he's with Hungary.
Again, you've got McAllister coming from South America. Now, I've not heard so much about his injury, but I know the last one, he was carrying an injury. So I don't know if that's a little bit in the past now.
Yeah, that's right. He didn't play in the Colombia game. Yep. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So who are the players that he's going to bring in for these lads? So there's Endo, of course. There's Endo. I feel he's unlikely to play, or he's unlikely to start him against Chelsea because it's a home game. because the onus is going to be on Liverpool to take the game to Chelsea. So I feel that that's unlikely. Curtis Jones, I feel it is kind of like it's kind of like the record that's stuck a little bit. He's good, but there's always this kind of he feels just a little bit shy of the level of the others. Harvey Elliott, I'm assuming, is still out, and even if he was available, it's unlikely he would be started because of because he's been out for a while. Now I watched the highlights of the under-21 game at the weekend because they played Man United, and I saw Tyler Morton was playing, so he's obviously trying to keep Tyler Morton game fit, because he's played in a few of the under-21 games recently. In fact, he's been scoring a few goals, which he's more of a defensive midfielder. But again, I doubt that he would start him. So he's probably. My guess is that you could well see the three that he's been starting every game up there. I don't think he has as many options to rotate in midfield as he does up top.
I think that's the reason, they were, trying to get Zubamendi or a number 6 in there. I think, it makes sense that the hierarchy looked at that a potential spot, if, an injury or two, and it could be a really makeshift midfield. Coach, the Leipzig game, is there, is that a rotation game? Because we got 2 wins in the bag already. Not to say that this is a throwaway game by any stretch, but is this maybe a letdown game, looking at Arsenal and kind of, the busy schedule that they've got coming?
He might rotate a couple of players. So for example, if he was to play Gakpo as a starter against Chelsea, then I think he's more likely to play Diaz or vice versa. Mm-hmm. So I think that might be possible for a position like that. But again, I don't see a lot of changes. And this might well be the undoing of Liverpool this year. We'll have to wait and see on that. I mean, Leipzig have a good squad. I'm just looking at the setup right now. They have a lot of good players. So it'll be a challenge. For them. Like the goalkeeper, Puita Galacci, I can remember watching him warm up here in Fenway Park one year. He didn't play, but I was watching him warm up and thought, oh, he's a pretty good goalkeeper. And so it's proved. He's had a very successful career since he left Anfield. And then, of course, you've got Sesko, you've got Simons, So they've got players of ability. Andre Silva's a very good player. So it's going to be a nice challenge. Baumgartner's there as well. Good player. Challenging game, I think, for Liverpool.
Okay. Well, Coach, the fantasy soccer review time now. I see you played your wild card.
Yeah, it was a bit of a disaster, actually. The last 2 weeks have been a bit of a disaster for me. I was going fairly consistently, but all these big guns, they kind of dried up when I needed them. But so, I guess I don't have enough differentials. I think that's what they call them. Isn't it? The like the players that 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 not many people have, but yet they can score you a big points haul in any given week.
Yeah, I saw you brought in Palmer, Semenyo, Duran, and Gravenberch. Yeah. My week was saved on Sunday. I had 17 or 19 points going into Sunday, but Martinez finally, Aston Villa did not let up a goal, even though they tied 0-0. And then I captained Palmer. He he had an assist. He could have had a goal to win the game, but he got a yellow card. And then Wood also scored. So those three guys kind of saved me. I'm wondering if Salah or it's always scary to not have Haaland on your team. But I'm just wondering if I move off of Salah now and go to Saka, because Saka looks to be in good form now. I'll have to take a deeper look, but the days of
I think we're gonna have to throw. I think we're gonna have to throw our loyalties to one side.
Well, Alexander-Arnold isn't going anywhere, but also bringing in Kelleher. Kelleher is very cheap. I think he's 4.4. That might not be a bad move. We'll see. I'll have to take a deeper look at it. But I'm in second place. I closed the gap between first place and myself. Unfortunately, he only had 25 points, and I'm 13 behind him. So I'm tracking well. Coach, you're tracking the other way, but hopefully it gets turned around.
They all scored. All by 11 scored, but they were all low scores pretty much. So.
Yeah. It was a tough week, too. I think the average for the week was 46. And, there was a lot of scores in the 30s and low 40s. There's one guy in the league that had 75 points, which was really good. Yeah. He captained Saka, 16 points, so that turned into 32. He's got Virgil and Alexander-Arnold. He's got Gabriel, and Mbeumo scored for him. Palmer had his 6 points, and then everybody else kind of had duds. It's interesting that this guy does not have Salah or Haaland on his team. Yep.
Oh, yeah?
He had 75 points. Sometimes it goes that way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's scary, though. Well, everybody, if you guys want to join our league, the code is CHPX42. If you just go to the Premier League website, they have a fantasy tab. You can create your team, join our league, or if you already have a team, just punch in that code. Again, it's CHPX42, and you can get in on the festivities. We do have 16 people in the league. Would love to get it up a little bit higher. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us, Coach. Thank you for your insight. And we have a very interesting period coming up. Coach, I am excited for this because the rubber hits the road here now. The talent level that we're playing against is going up. There are match winners on the other teams as well now, like high-end match winners. So it is an exciting run, and hopefully we can get through the international break unscathed and come back everybody healthy, ready for this big run of games.
Yep, that's
all right. Everybody, again, thank you for joining us. We will talk to you next time. Take care, everybody, and go Liverpool, and no injuries. No injuries. Take care, everybody. Liverpool fans, thank you so much for listening to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and would greatly appreciate your support. Please leave a 5-star review and feel free to email us at tlrlfcpodcast@gmail.com. Looking forward to hearing from you. Till next time.